Yes, people, welcome back. We're here. We're live. 12th man's back, and we are here with some Arsenal talk. We're going to do a North London derby preview, and to do that with is obviously myself, your host, Dan Potts. I've got Simon Miller back in the house. Simon, how the devil are you, man?
Good, thank you, man. How you, dude?
I'm good, man. Yeah, and it's been too long. The last time I think we spoke was a few weeks ago with a similar panel, actually. And a lot has changed in terms of international breaks and injuries, which we're going to get into, man. But good to have you with us, mate. Glad that you're doing well. And Tom Canton from the Gonna Talk TV. Tom, you've been rushing around like a blue-ass fly, but you're here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, all good, man. Yeah, just dropping cars off for servicing and things like that. And we're back, so we're good. We're all good, man.
Love for coming on, man. I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you both being here. Make sure you're doing me a favor, and in the live chat and description, you've got Match Bingo. Please make sure you've downloaded that using the code POTS. You will get a discount for that as well. Good luck for the weekend games. Hopefully, you win some money. I'm getting a lot of messages saying that you're winning on Match Bingo. So keep going, and good luck to you all. We've also got OK jerseys as well. As you can see, the code is 12man. You'll get 8% off for Christmas. So please make sure that you go and get your jerseys for all of your friends and family, and use OK jerseys for that. You can get retro ones. I've literally just yesterday received my France Zidane 10 and my R9 Brazil from 2002, and they are absolutely superb. So please make sure that you do get the retro ones as well, as nowadays as the first, second, and third kit are available for Arsenal as well. We've got the North London derby to talk about, people, and unfortunately we've got injuries to discuss first. So I'm going to come to you first, Simon, because the back line is going to be what everyone's talking about, because it seems now that Gabriel is a definite kind of doubt. And we're not sure about Calafiori or Timber, who come off with injuries in the international break. Now, we're hearing, I believe, and Tom will probably know more than me, that Timber and Calafiori might be okay. Gabriel doesn't look like he's going to be okay. But we've got options now. Now, a couple of years ago, Simon, I'm not going to lie, I would have been like, oh, no, we've got Rob Holding coming in. Are we sure that he's going to be able to do it? We saw when Saliba went down, it was a bit of a frustration. But we have now got options. We have now got players like Nkapie. We have got players like Mosquera. We have got Lewis-Skelly. And we have got Ben White. So we have got four players there that have all shown they've got quality. But what do you think Mikel Arteta's backline will look like in this game? I'm asking everybody this because there's all different opinions and different options that we've got, man. So let's start there. What would you think he will go with, Simon?
I mean, it's a great question. I mean, the good thing is you just prove that I don't think there's a wrong option necessarily. I mean, it all depends on what our overall goal is going to be at the weekend. And I guess we're going to talk about this later. I'm not overly worried about Tottenham this year. However, I do think Thomas Frank is very good. I think Thomas Frank has been dragged through the mud a little bit recently, and I think he's going to be one of those. He just doesn't get knocked by anything. So I don't think we can go into it and just be blasé like, man, Tottenham are the most inconsistent team ever. I mean, I think I would keep it relatively simple. I think Nkapie's look really good. I think him getting more minutes isn't a problem whatsoever, in the sense that he is still brand new to the Premier League, right? What are we in, November? It's been 3 months or whatever. But every time he's come on, every time he's sort of performed, I feel calm. I can't think of any sort of time when he's come on, I'm like, oh gosh. Like you said, in the past, some people would come on and you'd be like, oh no, it's going to be the worst thing ever. And even when Saliba went down a couple of seasons ago, people forget that. People like to go, oh, they just fell apart. No, he didn't. He was like our rock that year, and we lost it. And then the rest of the team, even Gabriel kind of suffered, because I don't think he was used to playing with somebody else. I don't mind putting Ben White in there, because it's a weird thing to say, because he has experience playing for Arsenal. That sounds bizarre, but I just kind of think I don't know how true all this is, but you read all these reports that he gets injuries and he gets knocks and he just works through them and he keeps his head down. And I kind of think of a North London derby, that's the kind of attitude that you need. Not that you wouldn't be able to bring in anybody else that wouldn't understand what we're doing. But I just kind of, even though his role has kind of been marginalized the last, season, as more players have come in, like he was a guaranteed starter, 2-3 seasons ago, whenever the hell it was. But his attitude doesn't seem to have changed to me. Could be completely wrong. Maybe I haven't read something. So putting him in that position, again, he's done it before. He knows what he's doing. I still think he's still pretty solid. I don't think he's as good as he was, but I still think he's pretty solid. And as for Lewis-Skelly, I would trust that man. It was over international break, right? When Thomas Tuchel was like, oh, Lewis-Skelly may not be going to the World Cup. He's not playing all the time for Arsenal. And in the last international break, everyone's like, Lewis-Skelly, he's going to play for England for the next 10 years. So I hate this reactive nature to it. He is 19 years old, right? So maybe that's a reason Well, it depends on his attitude and how he's feeling mentally. But at 19 years old, to be doing what he is doing, I think we sometimes ask for too much too soon. I think he has been a revelation. I think he's great. And again, I would have no qualms throwing him in the mix either. I think a lot of the players that have come through, especially over the last couple of years, have shown they're not intimidated, they're not scared, and they believe so much in Arteta and what's the word I'm looking for? But just the atmosphere around the club, that you're not going to get any nonsense. And if there are any mistakes, I think the rest of the team try and pick up for it anyway. So I think probably Ben White at a push. And then Cafe I've got no issues with. That's why he came in, right? He came in because a lot of the people we had in the past, and then Super in the past, like Rob Holding, but bless that guy. Man, I loved him. I wanted to love him so much, but he never really found his feet. So, but yeah, that's kind of where I would be leaving. But I would be confident. I don't think, especially because Tottenham's front line is not great. I mean, I wouldn't be overly worried about whatever Arteta decides to do.
Well, Tom, you'll know more than me about injuries, mate, and who might be available and who might not. Well, hopefully you will know more than me. But I think he'll play it close to his chest, really, Mikel Arteta, and telling people what he's going to do. But I'd love to get your thoughts on the back line because there's so many options. I saw this graphic. I was trying to put it up, but it's not seemed to be working, which basically gave us like five scenarios of what we can do, which I don't really know any other team in the league that can do that, if I'm honest with you. Normally they get an injury and it's like they've got one option, you know. We've actually got 4 or 5 things we can do in terms of the versatility of players. So what are you telling me, bruv? What are you thinking about this?
Yeah, obviously it's not ideal, is it? Like losing Gabriel for this game is huge. And he's been big in North London derbies as well in particular. He absolutely gets it. He's bought into this now, kind of the Arsenal culture, and he will be gutted that he's missing this game. And to now know that it's like potentially 4+ weeks that he could be gone for as well is even worse and even more damning. So again, I just can't help but be frustrated with kind of the Brazilian national side decided to play him in a friendly, you know, after clearly he was already in the red zone and was like warming up by himself on the Friday training session. It fills me with such frustration. And we've been quite lucky the last 2 international breaks. We haven't had anybody, you know, get injured. So it was only a matter of time till the law of averages fell against us again. But yeah, you're right to highlight the number of, I think 5's not even as many as I think there's like 10, 11, 12 different versions of Arsenal's back line for this game. It's kind of crazy because you could technically move Timber into the centre-half position and play White, Timber, Saliba on the left centre-half position with Calafiori. You could play Lewis-Skelly there. You could play Nkapie. I think what will happen is I think it will be Timber, Mosquera, Saliba, Calafiori. That's what I think it will be on Sunday. I think that while Nkapie would, for me, still be an absolutely fine selection for this game and maybe even be my preferred selection for the game, Mosquera's played the most of the kind of options this season so far. You know, he came into that game at Anfield, and even though we lost that game because of a freak free kick, he would have been responsible for helping keep a clean sheet at Anfield in his first kind of main bulk of his minutes in an Arsenal shirt and grew from that point. You know, the biggest compliment you can play to a centre-back is that when William Saliba's missing, that we don't feel like we miss it. When Mosquera's in there, that's a huge compliment to him. So, yeah, I think it will be Mosquera and Saliba as the back 2. I'd be surprised if it was Nkapie. Of course, Nkapie as well travelled back like from the States late last night or during the day, and has been playing for Ecuador in kind of testing the new US World Cup arenas for Ecuador as they go through their final friendly. So his travel isn't ideal, of course, going into this weekend, and he'll probably start the game against Bayern instead. So it's frustrating, it's gutting, but this is why we invested so much money. This is why we've signed so many players. It's so that we can be ready. I still think that, you know, Arsenal will drop points, I think, as a result of losing Gabriel. I think that no matter how much money you spend, you can't have the same quality come in for Gabriel. It's impossible. No team can have the same player coming in to replace such a world-class talent, but we have lessened that gap to the likes of, say, Kivior from last season. I like Kivior, but, you know, I think that gap has closed considerably this season with the investment.
So I agree with you. I think Mosquera is the guy that he'll go for. And the reason I think that is because I saw him do it against Liverpool at Anfield, which is a huge game and probably rather hot. Well, it is the toughest place to go, in my opinion. I've seen him do it at St. James Park, and I understand he made the mistake which led to the corner for the goal. But other than that, he really didn't put a foot wrong and hasn't really done all season, if I'm honest with you. I think he can play right-sided centre-back as well as left-sided centre-back, and so can Saliba, because he does it for France. So it really doesn't matter where Arteta goes in terms of who he plays left-sided centre-back and right-sided centre-back. But I imagine he'll just slip slip Mosquera in to replace Gabriel. And I think what it doesn't do then is it doesn't start shifting more than one position. It basically allows Timber, Calafiori, if they're both fit, by the way, to come in and play right and left back, and Saliba to stay where he is. And I think that's probably the option that Arteta will go with. Now, I've got no problem with bringing in Lewis-Skelly if he wants to shift Calafiori over to left-sided centre-back, or if he wants to start in Capier. But I just feel like playing in Capier and Calafiori, and probably Lewis-Skelly and Calafiori, I said this yesterday and on my show that I just feel both of them want to roam a little bit more. I think Mosquera is quite that kind of static centre half that can give you a little bit of cool and calmness. And cool and calmness in a North London derby is definitely cool with me. So I think that's kind of what I would be doing in terms of Mosquera. Now, some people might kind of look at that and go, oh, you don't want Mosquera coming in. But the guy has been very, very good. Let's not be, get ahead of ourselves. He's been much better than I ever thought. I mean, I didn't really watch him at Valencia, to be fair. I just heard good things that he was one up-and-coming centre-half. But he slotted in really well. And he reminds me very similarly, attribute-wise, to the likes of Saliba. I don't think his ceiling is anywhere near as high. But in terms of what he does on the ball and how cool and calm and composed he is, I actually think he's quite similar to Saliba in that respect. So I don't think it would be a bad thing. And then you're just literally slotting in one. But if I could just come back to you very quickly, Tom, what are we hearing about Timber and Calafiori? Like, is there an opportunity for them? Is there a real kind of worry about those two being fit, or are they both going to be okay, do you think?
Well, at risk of me looking an idiot in a couple of days' time, for me, I don't think there's any issue with Timber at all. I think that got blown way out of proportion. From the looks of things, he had a little cut on his knee, he went down, he finished the game, he was fine. So I think the Timber one's kind of been blown way beyond what it actually is. Calafiori had a hip issue when he went to the Italian national side. Didn't play in their first fixture, and it was thought that he might play in the game against Norway because that was a competitive game for them. That it was always unlikely ever that they were going to score enough goals to turn that around. They ended up losing that game anyway to Norway, who brilliantly qualified for the World Cup for I think the first time since '98. So congrats to them. But Gattuso in his press conference before that game turned around and said that it wouldn't be fair on the player, it wouldn't be fair on Arsenal to play him. I wish Brazil had felt that way.
Yeah.
But Gattuso said that it wouldn't be fair on those guys to play. So he's not. And so he's come back, and the expectation is that he hopefully will be okay. And he just kind of needed this 2-week break from action to recover from whatever minor hip issues. Because these players, they go into like zones of high risk, low risk, and the potential for an injury to occur, as was the case with Calafiori and Gabriel. Calafiori's not played, and so that kind of, if you're kind of seeing that that zone build up into the red, it's kind of come back down and the risk is lower. For Gabriel, it was in that same zone and he pushed it that bit further, and obviously we got an injury at the back of it. So yeah, I think that for Calafiori and Timber, fingers crossed, we'll hear from Mikel tomorrow, obviously at the press conference, but fingers crossed those two are going to be okay.
What's going to be interesting is we're going to listen to Mikel's press conference, and no one's still going to have a clue who's fit and who's not.
Oh yeah, but he's going to say nothing. It's the worst thing when I'm sitting in there and we're just waiting, obviously, because that's the story. The team news is the story I'm writing, and then he just turns around and says, "Yeah, well, we got one more training session, so I don't need to tell you anything."
100%, man. He will. You'll ask him that, and he will say that. But I don't expect, if I'm honest, him to start saying, "Yeah, this is the 11." I don't expect him to say that anyway. To be fair, but I do think there's options, and I do think that is definitely the back line is the one that people are questioning. But Simon, we've had so many injuries already, bro, and I think last season everybody said that was the reason why Arsenal just couldn't get going. They had way too many injuries, and Liverpool just flew ahead of us, and we couldn't catch up. Now, this season, I don't think we can have that excuse. Even though the injuries are still there, I do think the squad is unbelievably strong in comparison to what it was. But why are we getting so many injuries? Like, is there something? Is it bad luck? Is it that we are playing too many games? Is it our intensity in training is too much? Or is it a combination? Because we've got all of our attack out, and then they're now coming back, and now all of our defense is going out. Like, what? I can't understand this, man. Like, what is happening here, bro?
I mean, it's hard, right? Because it's always a combination. I think it can't just be one thing. I think it always has to be literally everything you just threw out there. My issue is, if I saw this happening, it must have happened to another club in the past I can't think of now. I'm very much, excuse me, I'm very much sort of de facto, it must be a training issue. They're pushing him too hard. Like, I follow Luton Town because My dad's a big Luton Town fan. And I think it was 2 seasons ago, they were absolutely pushing people too hard in training, and they were falling down like anybody's business. But the club was well aware of that, and that kind of snuck out. So obviously it can happen. And I suppose the reason we all talk about it more is because it can be the same players as well, right? Obviously Saka went down and Havertz went down. It felt like it was sort of similar injuries to what they'd had before. But at the same time, if this is the way that Arteta is approaching stuff and we're top of the league, we don't want to start changing things. I mean, maybe then it can be tweaks and stuff, but I can't believe that if it is that, we don't have a team in place to realize it and go, okay, we need to change it here. And also at this time as well, it was the international break mostly that totally screwed us over. Like that international break doesn't exist, and it doesn't happen in UK, in English football. But if all of a sudden you get a 2-week break, everybody probably then gets out of their slumps where they are and they get back to a certain level where they're going to be okay. But ultimately, I think I don't like it. I don't want injuries, but at least it goes to show, and I think a lot of fans hopefully will appreciate this. You know, we were better last season than we were the season before, and we're absolutely better than this season than it's moved on. So the management team in place is learning from the mistakes, because if we were in this situation, like I say, last year, I think we'd all be terrified about playing Tottenham at the weekend, right? Because we'd be like, we don't have anybody. All of these secondary players have to come in that are fine, but they just don't have that cutting edge. They don't have the level we're looking for. And yet now what we've done, obviously, is I would argue our first 11 is up there with anybody's when they're all playing at a level. And now other people can come in. And like Tom said, you can't replace like for like, because those kind of players won't sit on the bench, right? They want to start. But we have players that can come in at a certain level and they just make you feel calm. The issue we have is that's meant to be, oh, it's just one player here, it's one player there, as opposed to, oh, we've lost the entire front line. Oh, now we've lost the entire back line. I guess it's just football. The only thing that annoys me about it is the narrative continues to change. I don't want to get all like, oh, the media comes after Arsenal. But now it's all like, oh, well, you got the squad, you should be able to deal with it. Whereas other teams now, well, they do have a lot of injuries. It's like injuries are part of the game. Of course they are. But I don't think we should then start, throwing negativity just because Arsenal went and tried to sort out the problem. I think we'll know more about this come February, March, because if we're still top of the league or 1 point off the top, then you go, okay, injuries suck, but we manage the storms. We rode through that wave and we're still in competition. If we get there, I don't believe this is going to happen, and we were fourth and we do this, and then you're like, okay, it's still there. I think then I really do think you have to be like, we cannot suffer this many injuries every year, because what kind of squad can you come up with that's better than what we've got now? I mean, of course, there's always areas that you can improve, but I just think in these day and age, especially with the amount of games there are, you just have to manage it as best you can. But I think it's a huge reason why club fans are done with the international break. These are always the weekends when everybody seems to be brought down a notch, especially when it is a friendly game. I understand World Cup qualifiers. I ain't going to tell anyone not to go play for their country. But when it's a friendly and you lose a player, I think that's where just the negativity comes from club fans to international level. Because what was the point of that? And of course, I understand wanting to play for Brazil. Like, it's the biggest footballing nation in the world. But still, it was other people could have played, and he could have been on the bench and just enjoyed the atmosphere. But if we're going to win the league, we've got to deal with it. That's all there is to it. We're going to have to figure this out. And I'm confident because, like I say, I can see the improvements every single year.
Yeah, facts. Big up to DG in the chat. Big up to Luded. Hope you're well, bro. We need to collab soon, bro. Metaverse has delivered this morning. Big up the panel. Hit the likes. Make sure you hit like, people. Make sure you subscribe. And make sure you're following both of these people. I want to chuck this at you, Tom, because this has come from myself and you. Why are some gooners looking at us having options in a mocking way, saying that you do have the best squad in the world, you have to win no matter the injuries? Now, I appreciate that, and I do kind of agree to a stage that we can't use it as excuses, but I don't really know that Manchester City and Liverpool would actually be dealing with this as well as we are. If they would have lost, what's it now, 9 players that we're unsure about this weekend, that's alone. We know Gabriel, as you say, is out. We believe Timber and Calafiori are okay. We haven't even touched on Erdegaard or Martinelli yet, or Madueke, or Havertz, or Jesus, or Gyökeres. So when you look at it now, you think, actually, there's 6 more players there that I have absolutely no idea how fit they are, if they're fit, or when they're coming back. And I've got to be honest with you, Tom, I still don't really know what's actually wrong with some of them. Like, I actually don't know what's wrong with Gyökeres. Like, he walked off at Burnley, and I haven't seen him since. And I've probably had played the best 45 minutes that I've seen him play in an Arsenal shirt, and then I haven't seen him since. So I don't know what you can tell us on those individuals, and I'd love to get your thoughts on the injuries front as well, like why we seem to get so many, man.
Yeah, the whole thing, obviously, it's really, and I empathise with Simon kind of going into the conspiracy theorists column, because it's easy to think, there's more. But I mean, all you need to do is kind of look across the Premier League, and we aren't the only ones that have as many. I mean, obviously, Calafiori and Timber we've kind of ruled out. So if we think about the 7 that are now known, Jesus, Ødegaard, Havertz, Martinelli, Gyökeres, Madueke and Big Gabby, like that's 7 players that we've missed. Obviously, we've missed others at other points of the season as well, with Saka being out and Ødegaard previous injuries as well, and Hincapié, I think, missed the first few weeks of the season as well. But at the moment, if you look down the league, Villa have 6 out to our 7. Brighton have 6 out. Chelsea have 8 out. Palace have 6 out. Newcastle have 8. Nottingham Forest have 7. Spurs have 13 out at the moment. So it's not just us. Like it is across the league. We obviously, as Arsenal fans, kind of get into this blinkered mindset of just kind of looking down the alleyway of Arsenal, and that I think can lean into. It's worth asking the question, and I have asked the question to Arteta in the past and said, are you doing enough? Like, are you looking into what it can be? And he said that, we've looked at everything that we can look at as to why these injuries keep happening. And I always do kind of say to people that, take a breath, take a step back, think about it. We invest millions in the best sports scientists and strength and conditioning coaches, equipment, training methods. The actual fields, the training fields themselves are built to match that of the Emirates, which is considered to be one of the best turfs in the world of this sport. So, yeah, it would lean into common sense to think that, these injuries for me come from the volume of games these athletes have to play on such a regular basis, the increase of the Champions League from 6 to 8 games in the first phase of the competition, the fact that the League Cup semi-final, which we've been involved in a fair amount in the last few seasons, is double-legged pointlessly. Like these types of things, the international breaks and the friendlies these players are having to play 2 games in the space of, less than a week, when they don't and shouldn't have to play these games. They invented the Nations League to make friendlies even more competitive. It's when you think about it and you break all these things down, it's mad what we're asking. And now the World Cup's being expanded, so that's going to be even bigger. Arsene Wenger wants to make it every 2 years because he's not thinking about player welfare enough. Like, it's mad to think about really what these players are being asked to do. And it's really easy for us then as fans to kind of go, well, look at what are we doing wrong? It must be something we're doing. And we're not perfect. Arsenal shouldn't have started Saliba at Anfield earlier in the season when he had that issue in the warm-up. But it's so tempting, of course, in such a game of importance to start arguably your best centre-half in that game because he's such a necessity, and we hadn't seen Mosquera play. I feel as though at this point, Arteta is much more cautious than he was before. He also, last season, just didn't have the squad. I think he said at the end of the season, he was basically picking players based on who was fit, not who was best for the game, because we just didn't have enough left. So I really hope that we're looking at, these games coming up, the festive period, the buying game in between. I'm rotating for buying if I'm Mikel. The Chelsea and the Spurs game are far more important than that buying game, and we just need to make sure that we've got our full, absolutely everybody fit that's as feasible as possible for that fixture. So, yeah, the injuries for me, they're frustrating, they're annoying. You think back to the season before last, we didn't really have any. So it is swings and roundabouts. Sometimes you go through phases where you have loads of injuries, and then some seasons you don't really have any. So I think that it's a case of just kind of looking at the bigger picture, looking at how we compare to other teams, and also how trends of injuries across the league. It's not just us. We do seem to annoyingly, through misfortune, suffer them to our best players. That seems to happen to us more than others, and that is just a case of bad luck. But yeah, I get that it's kind of an emotive topic for many people.
It is. And if I'm honest, if I had to have a guess of who's going to be in the squad, I'm still not sure that I can, to be fair. Jesus is in training now, but I'd be amazed if he was in the squad after a couple of training sessions. Havertz, we believe, is out for a bit longer. Gabriel's definitely out. We think Timber and Calafiori are okay. I've not heard anything, Tom, on Gyökeres, Madueke or Martinelli or Ødegaard. So I don't know if any of those are fit in the squad. Do you?
Just quickly, Gyökeres, I'd be surprised if he's in the team on Sunday. I could end up being surprised again. Hopefully we'll learn a little bit more tomorrow, but I doubt we will. Gyökeres, I don't know. The two that I am feeling more optimistic about are Martinelli and Madueke. I'm hopeful for those, but again, it's kind of the worst week to bed players back in who've been missing for a while because they're 3 such high-profile games. If I was a betting man, I'd say Mikel Merino will be our centre forward on Sunday. But yeah, I think a few of them are going to be touch and go. Gabriel Jesus has been involved in training, but I mean, Jurriën Timber was involved in training for like 2 months before he actually came into a match day squad again. So there's always that. And I feel like almost the fact that he's in those pictures from yesterday is almost a bit of mind games from Arsenal in a way. And I'd be surprised if he's even in the squad. But who knows? Maybe he will be, but I don't think he will be.
And what about Odegaard? Sorry, quickly.
Again, I'd be surprised if he's there. He could be back in the weeks following that, because he was very optimistic when he spoke during the break. But I didn't get the sense from what he said that it's going to be this weekend. But they're pushing a lot, and obviously Havertz had that setbacks. But we don't know. Again, Nagelsmann was really vague on that. Like that setback, we don't know if that was last week, last month, 2 months ago. We don't know when that setback was. And he said, he'll be back toward the end of the year. Well, November is toward the end of the year, so we don't really know. It's tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Simon, Tom said it there. 13 players out for Spurs. Ronnie's in the chat. He's a big Spurs fan. He believes their lineup will be as follows: Vicario, Porro, Romero, Van de Ven, and Udogie, which, to be fair, is their strongest back five, I believe. Maybe Spence would get in there, but without, Udogie's been a good player for them over the years. Halilia, again, probably their best midfielder. Bentancur and Xavi Simons. Odegaard, Richarlison, and Kudus, who's back. I know they've got 13 injuries, but most of them must be to their squad players, because as far as I'm concerned, there's not really missing anyone other than Kulusevski and Maddison there from what I can see. But I might be right on Solanke, obviously. But what are you making of this Tottenham side this year? Because I'm with you. I think Thomas Frank's been getting a hell of a lot of abuse, and I don't quite know why, because he could have beaten Chelsea and gone second. And because he lost to him, he needed to get out and be sacked. It's kind of bizarre, really. They're 5th or 6th. I don't get it personally. Like, I think he makes them hard to beat. I think he's a very good manager, well drilled, definitely improved them defensively. If you remember them under Ange, they were a laughing stock, weren't they? Let's be honest, in 17th. So I think they'll be a tough side to beat at the weekend. I really do.
I do as well, because that's how he'll set up, right? He will, and I don't mean this in a bad way. I mean, this is a compliment. He will set up as don't lose the North London derby. I'm not saying they're going to be boring. I'm not saying they're going to put everyone behind the ball, but he will realise that getting twonked by Arsenal right now is a really bad idea, because he's good, because he's a really smart, I mean, once again, complimentary, but I don't mean basic manager the way he approaches a game, but he just looks at things very, very clearly. I remember at the start of the season, people were like, who do you think is going to be the under-the-radar manager? And I said, it'll be Thomas Frank, because even if they don't bring any players in, he'll work. That's what he did at Brentford for years, right? I'll work with everybody I've got. Doesn't matter who you sell, who you bring in, I will figure it out. So, yeah, I mean, to me, that's, I don't sort of massively know about Tottenham's squad, but that is what I kind of would expected. Dominic Solanke, obviously, I feel sorry for the guy, really. His injury record, he never gets any kind of consistency, right? He's like in and out, in and out. And, I mean, Richarlison, put it like this: if Richarlison scored a hat-trick against us, I'd go cry in a corner. Richarlison isn't really, I've never really seen much from Richarlison. However, Van de Ven, I think, is, you know what I mean? Like, I would take him tomorrow if all of a sudden you could pinch him. Yeah, in terms of, he can kind of do what centre-back shouldn't do, if that makes sense. Like, sometimes he's bombing up the field and you're just like, where did this come from? And look, they spent a lot of money on Simons. Everyone seems to pronounce it differently. I have no idea which one it is. And I wouldn't say he has hit the ground running. But again, I always like to give players, no matter what team they're on, a betting in period, because I remember people throwing shade at Gyökeres after 3 games. It's like, give the dude a chance to find his feet. So I want to do the same with him too. But I think they've got a decent manager. Again, there's some players in that squad that are not bad, are they? I mean, they're pretty good. If a Tottenham fan came to me and said up front they look a bit light, I would agree. Only because I don't think Richarlison is very consistent at all. Sometimes he can turn it on, and sometimes he does nothing, and he gets sort of pulled off at half time. So I mean, it's difficult because it's North London derby, but I feel like no matter what team we put out and the consistency that we have had, you should be able to beat that sort of a team. But it doesn't work like that against Tottenham because it never does. But there's nobody in there. I shouldn't say this. I'm going to shoot myself in the foot, and I'm certainly not disrespecting that team. Again, I think Thomas Frank is great, but there's no one in there that really gives me the massive fear, like, oh, he's gonna run rings around us. And that wasn't necessarily always the case. But again, I'm not gonna get arrogant with this because we've seen such mad scores in the past. But it's one of those games, especially coming off an international break and what the other teams could do. I think Arteta will know he's got to win it. He's got to, if you get 3 points from this, especially after the Sunderland result, all of a sudden you're back on track and you sort of can reset going towards the crazy Christmas period. But we'll see. They will definitely be more up for it than they have been, especially Thomas Frank. He's what I worry about the most. I think he's a very smart manager. He scares me a lot.
Do you know what's mad?
Away game this season either. Sorry, Dan.
I was just going to say that. I was just going to say the away game stuff is amazing. I mean, Roddy's in the chat. He's obviously mentioned that, but I also think it's their best signing this season, Thomas Frank. Like, I genuinely do. I think I can't believe the abuse that he's getting from Spurs fans. I don't know what they expected, coming from 17th, picking up a bit of a mess, and then all of a sudden they're like 5th or whatever it is. Yeah. Like, did they want to be top of the league then? I just don't quite get it, if I'm honest.
And also, like, look at what happened to Forest when they appointed Ange. Like, you can see how bad a manager they had. And you just look at what happened last season with them. Yes, they won the Europa League by beating the team that finished 2 places above them in the Premier League in 15th in the final. I think they by the glimpse in the semi-final. Like, and then you're looking at Ange go to Forest and not win. I think lost every game other than the draw in the Europa League against Betis. I think that was it. Like, so it just showed you kind of how bad a coach they had, and now Frank, is having to kind of pick up the pieces, and it takes time to do that.
No, I agree. I really don't think that he's been a shambles at all. I don't deny that the football might not be entertaining at times, but my God, like, I don't know what Tottenham fans are expecting. There's a couple of comments I just wanted to throw out in the chat before we do come to you, Tom. Fred says, Dan, Sunderland fan here. There's a massive rumour that we're after Guendouzi in January. What's your thoughts? I always liked Guendouzi. I know people said that he had bad attitude and he needed to go, but I actually thought he was quality. He had some top talent. And if you're going to have Xhaka and Guendouzi, well, there's a lot more that we had back then, so you might as well chuck in, like, Bellerin and maybe Mustafi, and maybe you fancy a few of those. Do a Fulham, yeah, do a Fulham, yeah. Do a Fulham and be Arsenal 2.0, that's for sure. I'll be worried about Michael Oliver. We will come to that, definitely. I think it's worth mentioning. I don't really care about referees, but as far as referee goes, I genuinely can't stand it when Michael Oliver is the ref for Arsenal, but is what it is. And Shane's got a question for you, Tom. Big up to Shane. If you're not following Shane, make sure that you are. He's an absolute legend. He's live all the time, around about this time, actually, most mornings. So make sure you go and show some love to Shane Guna. Says, question for Tom: who blamed Ancelotti on the Gabriel injury? Can he say with a straight face that Arteta would have rested Gabriel at the weekend if it had been an Arsenal game? Not a chance. What are you saying to that, Tom?
Shout out to Shane first, as you say, mate. Top man. And we've had some good chats in the past. We don't see eye to eye on Arsenal, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation about it. But I think that if it was a friendly, there's no way that Arteta would have started Gabriel. Obviously, the difference with this is that if, say, it was the North London derby and Gabby was in that kind of red zone, if you would, he probably would risk it. Yeah, as he did with Saliba. I know the Saliba situation was different because it happened obviously in that warm up for that game, and Saliba was adamant that he was fine to start, but he wasn't. So they didn't really have the information that Brazil had on the Friday when they had obviously Gabby warming up on his own, separate from the others in the session. But yeah, I think he would have risked Gabby if it was the North London derby. But obviously Brazil had a friendly, so there is obviously quite a big difference between the two games.
I do think, and this is not to make it, provide a huge debate here, but I do think Arteta has been partly to blame in some of the injuries that we've had. Not all of them, because obviously you can get an injury anywhere. Don't blame him for Odegaard's injury when he rolled his ankle last season. That's not Arteta's fault. Do you know what I mean? And I think, to be fair, Odegaard falling on shoulders and stuff and injured him. I'm not really blaming Mikel Arteta, but I do think the Saka one was one that was obvious. I just couldn't believe he was still playing. I don't think we needed to play him last season against Preston and Bolton. And this, and this season with Gabriel, I don't really know why he played him against Slavia Prague. And what was the League Cup game that we had?
He hasn't played in the League Cup.
Port Vale. Was it Port Vale that he brought him on?
No, he started Saliba and Mosquera against Port Vale.
It was Brighton.
I don't know if he came on at the end, but he didn't start either of those games.
It was Brighton then. The one.
I think about Mikel is that, I
just don't know why he's bringing him on for those. Is my point, but yeah,
it's not just those as well. I've been frustrated with Mikel's kind of handling of some players, like when we're 4-5-0 up and we don't take our best players off, at times that he needs. I think it's a basic understanding of Arteta's kind of drawbacks is that his man management is the area of his game that still needs to improve. I'd rate so much of it, but that element of his management absolutely needs to improve.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's winning that battle of, no, boss, I want to play. No, boss, I want to play. Of course they do. If I was a professional footballer, I want to play every game, right? But you can't. Your body's not going to handle that, And I think Mikel sometimes has to just say, look, we're 4-0 up. let's just do it. Yeah, it's the League Cup. As Shane said, it's the Brighton game. I'm sorry, Tom, it's not Port Vale, it's Brighton, as I said. Sorry, I was one that I meant. But
He didn't
yeah,
start against Brighton either. He came on late, I think.
that's what I'm saying. He came on, and
Yeah.
I think, what the hell are we bringing Gabriel on for this? Like, I just didn't get that one. But anyway, look, you can always look back in hindsight. You can also look at the fact that Salah and Van Dijk play every single game and don't get injured. So it's very it's a very hard one. But I do think Arteta can do more. To be fair, look, let's get your thoughts, Tom, of this game, because I don't know how this one's going to go, but I imagine they'll go for more of a low block and make it hard for us. I don't think Tottenham will come out and try and play unbelievable football, because I don't know that their squad's better than ours, or their 11's better than ours. So I think Thomas Frank is a side that is well drilled, makes it difficult for teams. We saw in the preseason that they were actually quite hard to beat. We actually ended up losing that game. And I know it's only preseason, but you could see straight away the kind of style they were going to implement under Thomas Frank. And that's why I don't see a high scoring game at the weekend. But how do you think this is going to go, mate?
I hate these games. Like, I absolutely hate the derby. I hate it because, like, the high that it can give you if you win is great, but I think the low is worse than the high of winning it if you don't win it or lose it. And that's, I hate the build up to it. Trying to, obviously, being in the press box as well, like the unwritten rule, you can't celebrate. You're not meant to kind of, you're focusing on work. It's the game I struggle with the most to kind of stay focused on my job, basically, during these fixtures. And I think that we'll be fine, is the honest. I think we'll be, even with all the players that we have missing, I still think that we have a stronger squad, stronger team, stronger 11 for this game. We're at the Emirates, which is another help as well, even though their record at home has been deplorable, really. It's frustrating that we don't have a natural, it seems, senior centre forward to start this game. That's, I think, the biggest loss. I think Gabby is a big loss, obviously, but if you offered me, you can have Gabby for this game or Victor for this game, I'd choose Victor to have a natural centre forward option, because we have good depth in the centre defensive partnership area. So I think that for me is the big one. If Arsenal can win this game without these players, and obviously the players are gradually coming back, it sets a massive precedent, of course, going into this festive run of fixtures as well. It starts us off in the perfect way. We obviously didn't win our last game at Sunderland. We responded really well to going 1-0 down at the start of that second half, and I'm hoping that we respond really well to dropping points as late as we did going into this one as well. Because if we do win this game, and win it well as well. It's not just about just winning it. I think, the derbies, you want to try and absolutely win and put on a show and really kind of make a statement. And if you can do that, then it really sets us up strongly. But I think that we'll be able to, I think the midfield battle, we should win relatively comfortably. Xavi Simons has not been a particularly great signing so far, even though I personally had a lot of time for the talent, prior to he arrived to Spurs. I thought he really would have been a better signing than he has been. I think the wing areas are going to be, like, Timber's been really good at kind of locking down those one-on-ones, so he'll be going up against Odegaard, who's got a lot of talent, a lot of flair. Same on that other hand, the Spurs right-hand side is, I think, probably where they're going to be most dangerous if Kudus starts, if Calafiori's kind of going wandering and he moves into those kind of advanced positions. Can the player who is going to fill in for Gabriel? Because the big thing about Gabriel, the biggest benefit you get from him is that it allows Calafiori to do what he does, because Gabby's so good at covering so much of that left-hand side with his defensive brilliance that whoever comes into that position, if it is Calafiori that starts, and it could be an argument without Gabby to think about Miles Lewis-Skelly more so than Calafiori, even though Skelly as well has his moments of kind of being, suspect a little bit when in behind with the ball over the top. I think that's the biggest area for Spurs, is the lack of Gabby means, and for any team facing Arsenal in these coming weeks, is our left-hand side of the defence is going to be weaker as a result, and that's where we need to be on it. And then when we get the chances, we have to take them when they come. And it really is I know it sounds a bit Michael Owen, but it really is as simple as that.
No, it doesn't sound Michael Owen. You're spot on. I think that it is going to be close, and I think we do have to take our chances. I think we will get chances. I don't think this Tottenham side is weak defensively, actually. I think that's probably one of their strongest parts of their side, actually. Vicario can be got at, without a doubt. Like, Vicario is a very good shot stopper, in my opinion, but I do think from crosses he sometimes flaps a bit. And I think from our set pieces, we've got a great chance. We've seen Tottenham trying to defend set pieces against Manchester United the other week, and it was abysmal, if I'm honest. I mean, two of them marked the goalkeeper instead of De Ligt, and he scored. That was just, that for me, that was just embarrassing, really. But I do feel like we have got some strength of depth. Now, we are going to miss Big Gabby, absolutely, but we do still have Declan Rice who can put it on the plate. And we do have some monsters in there, Simon, that can really, cause some problems. If Mosquera plays, even if Concapia plays, you've got Calafiori in there. You've got potentially, Julian Timber. I know he's not the tallest, but he's got some bounce on him. You've obviously got the likes of those kind of players in there that tower over people. So I do think set pieces will be strong again. But I'm kind of looking, I don't know about you, Simon, in this game at Eberechi Eza, who I believe will play if Odegaard isn't fit. And I like some of the contribution he's had this season, Eza, but I also look to him to probably try to do a bit more. Now, I'm kind of on the side of the fence of, I don't know what you were expecting, because I think some people thought he'd have about 15 GA by now and that he'd be one of the best in the world. I didn't. I thought he was going to come in and be a contributor and come in and do exactly what he's done, because that's what he did at Palace. Like, he disappeared in some games and then boom, he popped up again. And that's what he did in the Man City game, where he set up Martinelli, he set up Gyökeres against Forest, he scored against Palace, he scored against Port Vale. So there are moments of his games that I like. I do think that he can be a little bit more visible in games. But he's one player I'm looking at, because I know what I'm going to get from Zubimendi and Declan Rice in this game, if I'm honest. But he's one player I'm looking at, putting maybe a little bit more pressure on him, in my opinion. But what have you made of Eza so far, and how important is he at the weekend, do you think?
I think I agree with you. I didn't think he was going to come in and sort of, be the focal point or light the world up. I thought he was an excellent addition to a squad, a great Premier League player. Then again, you don't get it once you play for Crystal Palace or any other team, you don't get the excuse of, well, you'll learn the league. No, you know the league. And that's why he was such an exciting signing. Because you were like, well, you can throw him in tomorrow and it's fine. He understands the grounds. He understands the culture, understands what he's doing. I think he's been pretty good. But maybe the fact that I say it in that kind of tone of voice sort of sums it up. But I'm like you. I have been happy with his contributions. I assumed he would go missing in some games because he did that at Crystal Palace. And why would that all of a sudden change just because that could change sort of maybe 2026 going forward, once maybe he's had more time working with Arsenal and the coaches and stuff. But I think it would be unrealistic to expect it so soon. Like, do you know what I mean? Because people come in with their own habits and their own structures that need to be either worked out or you need to work them within the team. However, I actually think you hit the nail on the head with the game this weekend, because as Tom mentioned, right, North London derby, everything changes. You feel sick the whole time. You kind of just want to get through it as much as possible. And given that he does wear Arsenal, he's proper heart on his sleeve Arsenal fan. That's the other reason people loved it so much. Like, it was such a wonderful sort of fairy tale story. It is these kind of games where all of a sudden you can come out, you can hit a home run, you can totally smash it, and then the rest of the season is almost made for you. Do you know what I mean? Maybe Odegaard comes back and all of a sudden we're like, oh, sweet. Who are we going to, who do we actually start? Maybe we can actually get to that kind of competitive level. Maybe we start moving Eze around a bit just because he needs to get in the team. So I think the result is more important than any individual performance. But I also think that if Eze could kind of boss the game a bit and be that sort of linchpin of it all, then all of a sudden, not only is it going to help him, it's going to help his confidence, it's going to help the team, but then people will sort of keep an eye on him more as well. But I certainly haven't been unhappy with what he's done. And again, my big thing with Arsenal, especially when I look at some other big teams, is I just love the atmosphere of the club. Everyone feels like they're on the same page. And the way that he's sort of just been, what's the word I'm even inducted, wherever the right word is, into the team is just so good. It feels like he's been there for ages. And obviously he hasn't. I don't mean that from I expect more from him, but just doesn't seem out of place. Seems like he understands what the plan of attack has to be. And listen, he does have an opportunity. Big game. Odegaard's not going to be back. It's just kind of, I thought same kind of for England. I thought he played well, but it's not like I'm going to be running around going, oh my gosh, it's the greatest performance I've ever seen. But I do really like him. And I think there's more, there's definitely more to give. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe deep down, you just know there's more and you just hope that it comes. Because obviously sometimes with a player, it never actually gets there. And he still has a great career. But, it just kind of falls maybe below the standard people were hoping for. But I do really like him, and I think it's a great signing. And given the way that some of the players have been injured, that's one of the reasons we went and got him, right? But thank goodness we did, because I do think he really shores up that squad. But it absolutely could be one of those games where he grabs it by the scruff of the neck, and he's the reason that, again, I'm talking la-la land here, but you win sort of 3-0 or something like that. And you're like, oh, wow, Eze just completely bossed that. But, yeah, again, he does have Rice and Zubimendi sitting behind him. And if something bad happens with them, everybody would be astounded because they're just so consistent every single week. And I think that should build his confidence as well. But yeah, it is a big game for him, I think, for sure. I think we could see something.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it will be a big game for Ezra anyway, Tom, because of how he came to Arsenal in the summer. Obviously they believed he was going to Tottenham. He last minute decided to come to
Man, I
us, and I
forgot
think,
about that. I totally slipped my mind. I totally
well,
forgot he did. That's even better.
I mean, yeah, that why what you're saying, Si, makes it even more important for him to have a good game. And I think if he was to score, then yeah, it'd be incredible. Ezra does have these kind of games though, Tom, where he does turn up in big moments. We've seen it
Yeah.
in for Palace against the
Same.
in the FA Cup semi-final and in the final he scored. And I think that he plays Palace. What does he do? He scores against them. And I know it's not a huge game, but for him it is. And I kind of feel like a lot of people are looking at what his performance at the weekend for the right reasons. I think they should be, because I think he does need to step up anyway in relation to how he's been performing. But certainly, the goal he scored for England last week was absolutely outstanding. And
No, it's all
I
about the
thought,
pass, mate. That Foden pass.
yeah,
Incredible.
it was
It was
the
the greatest
Foden
thing I've ever
pass.
seen.
Yeah. Look, I actually quite appreciated Phil Foden's pass. I thought people were going a little bit over the top, but it was a brilliant strike from Ezra and superb from Saka as well in that game. But I think they're the two I'm looking at this weekend in terms of our attack, Tom. Because look, Trossard has moments, and I think he's been excellent for us in the last few. And I think one thing I will say actually is I kept going into games, particularly at home and in the pub, and I'm like, team news, Trossard on the left. And if I'm honest with you, in the last few games, Arteta is absolutely right to put him on the left, because I think he's clearly been I think he's probably our best attacker this year, to be fair. And then up top, you've obviously got Mikel Merino. I actually don't mind Merino up top. Some people like poo-poo it and say like, oh, yeah. But I actually prefer him than I do in midfield. I'm not sure what what he does in midfield, if I'm honest. He goes missing. But certainly up top, I think he could be a threat, and certainly his aerial abilities there. But I think Eze and Saka are the two I'm looking at for this game, Tom, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're absolutely right on Trossard. He's been excellent. I really do think that what a blessing we didn't end up letting him go. In the summer.
Yeah.
And it shows you kind of how quickly he swings around about in a way. And I think his time at Arsenal will come to an end, in the near future. But I think it's important that you kept, because we had to invest what we did. We weren't, if we were going to lose Trossard or Martinelli, we weren't going to get the money we probably should be getting for either of them during this window. And the interest wasn't necessarily there. And Martinelli as well, has had a good season up to the point he got injured, I thought, as well. And he's kind of disproven a few of his doubters going into many of the games we've had. But with Ezra, it's an interesting one, because I personally felt like, I was buzzing for his arrival. I really wanted us to sign him, and I thought he'd be a game-changing player for us. And that will come still, I think. And I think that he's adapting still to playing for an Arsenal side that come up against a far more lower mid-blocks than Crystal Palace did. He was able to play his best transitional game for them and had a lot more space and time to have a greater influence. For me, I think his best role for Arsenal is going to come off the left-hand side. And the reason for that is because even though I think he can play 10, the Arsenal 10 needs to be so much more involved in everything that we do. And that's why I think we've missed Martin for so many of the weeks of this season. And while Ezra's done a decent job in that role, I think because Ezra is more of a moments player, you tend to get more of your moments from your wide two, your right winger and your left winger. Whereas the 10 needs to be a lot more involved and a lot more high touch player than perhaps what Ezra is impactful in that way that he plays for the 10 role, that he suits really well for Palace, but it's not as suitable for the way in which we play and for the opposition style that we come up against. So for me, I think Ezra on the left, when Odegaard is back, we will see more of the best of him. I remember that, the setup he had for Gyökeres in that game, was it the Forest game? I think it was, with the kind of the pass across the box. It was a brilliant opportunity that we created out from Calafiori's ball. And I think that link up between Calafiori and Ezra as well is another partnership I want to see allow more time to flourish. So, and that doesn't mean moving Trossard out at some point as well. And it's going to be a fight. So it could be that even when Odegaard comes back, that Ezra ends up on the bench and becomes more of an impact player for a period, or actually Arteta needs to learn to rotate more, when we get these players back, and we need to see these players kind of change in and out of the team for the 2 weeks that we have every single week. So yeah, look, I think that Saka's obviously huge, always. Trossard seems to be a big game player, always turns up in these big moments. And Merino as well, who we expect to be probably the centre forward for this game. And this is a guy that scored against Liverpool, scored against Chelsea, scored against Real Madrid in a 5-1 aggregate victory, scored against France for, Spain when they were desperately trying to grab a goal to go through to the Euro semi-finals before going on to win the competition. He's a big game player. He turns up in big moments and he scores big goals, and he's a clinical finisher. So we've got to get the ball to him. That's the biggest thing, because he isn't mobile. He's not going to drop in like Kai and Jesus do, and he's not going to run the line like Victor does, and he did so well at Burnley in that 45 minutes we spoke about earlier. So Mourinho is going to be a target, and we need to get the ball to him in dangerous positions, and that's how we're going to get the best from him.
Yeah, I agree with you on Mourinho, actually. He has scored. That header he got against Newcastle at St James's Park, by the way, was incredibly underrated.
Newcastle as well, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's a tough place to score, we know. It's a tough place to get a win, let alone score a goal. So I think, for me, it's very, very important that we find him for sure, because I think aerially, I've got no problems with him personally, Mourinho. I really don't. I didn't like him in midfield. I've got to be honest. I mean, he's not bad there, but I don't think, wow, this guy is like levels on everything. I think he's just a bit of a squad bumper there. But I do think up top he can actually cause a threat. And it's weird because I don't quite know what position he actually is, Simon Mourinho. I don't know if he's kind of that. I think he's kind of an off the striker type player. Do you know what I mean by that? Like you have like the kind of one that just drops off the striker. I kind of think that's what Mikel Mourinho is. So I kind of see him in more of a 4-4-2. But that's kind of where I'm at with him. But, I mean, we've got to get the ball. The attack's going to be so vital to us at the weekend, Simon, isn't it?
Oh, no, for sure. And Mourinho is so strange because, and this is on me, I hold my hands up. I'm guilty as charged. But it's just, every time he's put in that position, I always feel a bit like, oh, man. And then I watch him play, I'm like, what was I worried about? he always does something in a game. And he doesn't. I think you just said he seems so unfazed. Doesn't matter who the opponent is. He kind of understands he's a very simple player. And again, I don't mean he's not good, but he just understands what his job is and he goes and does it. But I'm like you. If we had everybody fit, I don't know where he would come on. I don't know what the plan would. I think it could be anywhere. I think he could come on in goal, and I'd be like, oh, just what Mourinho does. you just throw him wherever you need him. But I would assume he's one of those players that he doesn't need to be the superstar. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't need to be the focal point. He's there for the team. And you do need players like that. Or at least that's the impression that I get from him, especially when you go watch what he does on international duty as well. But yeah, I think I do him a disservice because even when you mentioned it earlier, Mourinho will probably play up top. I was like, oh man. And I think about it, I was like, why? Why am I worried about this? It's completely fabricated in my own head. But I think it's because, as you just said, Dan, you don't know where he plays. He just kind of moves around because in midfield, he's fine. He does an okay job, but you wouldn't want if that was who we were starting with. We're going back sort of 3-4 years when all of a sudden you're like, oh man, we need a better quality of player there. But listen, I think he'll do a good job. I think you're 100% right. We have to service him. He is not going to drop back and get the ball. We have to make sure he'll be where he's going to be and everybody else is going to have to sort of play around that. But if you know that going in and you know that if you do get the ball to him, he'll probably do exactly what you want him to do. Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, I'm still mugging him off a bit. Like I wouldn't mind it if next season maybe we had another option as well, but it seems drastically unfair because he has not let me down so far. And he also seems perfectly happy to do the role. He seems absolutely over the moon. I'll do this time in, time out, no problem. Thank you very much. But yes, we're going to have to make sure that we play to his strengths and not hope that all of a sudden he pops up somewhere that he's unlikely going to be. But no, I do like him. And I think I'm going to spend this weekend just trying to actually believe in him a bit more. It's massively unfair.
No, look, I'm kind of with you, mate. And I think Mourinho has done a good job in that role for sure. Tom, let me get your prediction before you shoot off because I know that you've got to go on to another show and do a recording. So what are you saying for this weekend, mate?
Yeah, I'm just manifesting this, but I have absolutely no idea what's going to happen. So I'm going to go 3-0 Arsenal just because I want that to be the reality. It doesn't come from a place of thought or analysis or prep. It's just, I'd like to win this game 3-0, so I'm predicting 3-0. It's as simple as that.
I hope you're right, bruv. I hope you're right. Yeah, no, big up. Look, we'll do predictions from me and Simon quickly, and then we'll get you off so you're not late. I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal. I think it'll be a tight game, but I do think we've got enough, and I think we'll take 3 points, and that's all that matters to me. Then I would rotate, believe it or not, against Bayern, because I don't think that is the absolute must-win game, but I do think the Chelsea one is. So we have to beat Chelsea after that. What are you saying for the score, Simon, before we wrap up?
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0. Mostly because even without Gabriel, I really trust Arsenal's back line again. The Sunderland was like, what? How dare you score 2 goals?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And I'm going to regret this. I'm kind of doing what Tom did, though. I just don't think really Tottenham have the firepower to test us. And now, of course, we'll lose 9-0 and everyone can yell at me. And it is my fault. It is my fault. But I just don't think they do. I'm probably being a little bit biased there, but I'll go 2-0.
Do you know it's the first time since 2014 that Kane and Son are not involved in a competitive North
That's
London
a hell
derby.
of a stat. That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't think of that. We haven't got Kane
Yeah.
or Son. Wow, that's mad. And I'm not going to start laughing at Odebear and Charlton because they'll probably both score if I do that. So, yeah,
I
let's
screwed
just
up.
say
I'm
that,
sorry. I
you know,
take it back. I shouldn't have said it.
Tottenham have got a brilliant front line. I expect them to score a couple of goals, Simon. That's what we should say. But yeah, it's one of those. But no, look, big up to both of you for coming on. Make sure you're following the Gooner Talk TV and Tom Canton Media. Make sure you're following Simon Miller on all social media platforms and all of his wrestling stuff on YouTube as well. And make sure you're following us here at 12th Man. Make sure you've hit like and subscribe. We're on the way to 60K next. So let's make sure that we can get there together. And we will see you next time, people. We're out of here. Laters.